Hi, this message is for 11th grade. This is the video for your lesson on Wednesday, October 22nd. So today we really looked at the Declaration of Independence and the context for it. And then we looked at our document, our text, which is the Hamilton musical with a focus on the Schuyler Sisters number. And at the end, I demonstrated how you can go ahead and get started on your song analysis using Schuyler Sisters. And I'll analyze that a little bit more tomorrow so that you feel between today's video and tomorrow's video really sure about how you're supposed to go about doing your song project. Your STEM today is the Continental Congress defied the British. And then you'll make your choice for what song to study. We use Nearpod as we've been using, but I can take you through the lesson using just these virtual Google Slides. All right, so Declaration of Independence, Day 3. And we began with this message from Lin-Manuel Miranda about Alexander Hamilton. I can't play it here because of copyright, but I'll capture the spirit of it. Hamilton was from the Caribbean. And when he moved to America, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, these men really had an allegiance to Virginia above all. They were invested in the country as a nation, and they wanted it to be united, but their country was Virginia. And it's difficult to shift that thinking into a more centralized attitude. Whereas Hamilton had no such allegiance. And so he really was foundational to seeing the country as a whole, a cohesive unit, without any particular tribe or party. So that the proto-immigrant status of Hamilton gives us a unique view on the Declaration of Independence, which is trying to assert itself as the first document for a nation. The very first time a nation says, we are separate and we are our own. Of course, Hamilton is instrumental in some of the creation of political parties, but still, Miranda has wonderful things about Hamilton that he offers, that Hamilton is a lifer. He is coming to the United States, and he is not going to leave. He is here for this country, which is his country. So we'll see that and some of the other documents we look at with the text, including Cabinet Battle Number 1, if you choose Cabinet Battle Number 1. So we've got these personalities. Hamilton, proto-immigrant, fiery, opinionated. Washington, regal, reserved, with integrity. He's a military man. So in the middle of all of this, the Continental Congress, he's fighting. He is already in the fight, and he's occupied with the operations of it. James Madison is a compromiser, this great diplomat who seeks to bring two sides together. And then you have the Declaration Committee. There are 5 men on the committee, but the 3 in the scene that we watched are John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and Ben Franklin. And in this scene, which I hope will play from HBO, Thomas Jefferson is the one who's tasked with writing the Declaration of Independence, so he's sitting and watching the 2 men read what he's written. But at the time, nobody really knew it was him. They just knew that Congress put this document forth. And in the Congress, they just knew the committee put the document forth. So we think of Jefferson as the author of this, and that's really important, and it's true, but they knew at the moment that they're trying to create something together that's going to represent the entire spirit of America, not just Thomas Jefferson's individual view. And Jefferson himself was aware of that. So here we are. We watched this clip, which I'm hopeful will play, so we'll see how it goes.
Said, sir. Very, very well said. The Christian king of Great Britain has waged cruel war against human nature itself in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere. Yes, you lay the evils of slavery at the feet of the king. King, but you say nothing of slavery itself, sir. Now, surely, if the trade is outlawed but ownership is not, then those unfortunate Negroes still in servitude will become a more lucrative commodity.
Well, that's not what I intended, Dr. Franklin. Slavery is an abomination and must be loudly proclaimed as such, but I own that neither I nor any man has any immediate solution to the problem.
Oh, well, 'tis no matter. The issue before us is independence and not emancipation.
Dr. Franklin, this document is
something our friends in the Congress will debate, but I would be very surprised if they will countenance an attack on slavery. We hold these truths to be sacred enough.
This is something altogether unexpected.
All men are created equal and
Not only a declaration of our independence, but
sacred
of the
enough
rights of all men.
smacked of the pulpit.
Now, this is well said, sir. Very, very well said.
The Christian king of Great Britain has waged cruel war against human nature itself in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere.
Yes, you lay the...
So, I like that scene because it shows you how this is a co-created document. That the language switches from sacred and undeniable to the language that we've come to know, which is self-evident. In class, I asked your classmates here, can see that they've got some responses, to make sense of the Declaration of Independence with me. And if you're doing this at home, I would like you to reveal that same understanding in your STEM for today. But I'll put the document here too so you can see what they saw. And I just clipped the first section of the Declaration of Independence. So we'll talk through it with you. So when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands that have connected them to another, then they are required to declare the causes, which impels them to separate. So this is the introduction, just saying sometimes it becomes necessary to start a new government, but you have to be able to explain why. Then it begins, we hold these truths to be self-evident. So there's the final language, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So here, the language is really universal. All people have these rights, not just Americans, everybody. And in every human community, a government is put into place to make sure that these rights are withheld. The government, which in the modern era is the governments we know of, but goes far back to any officials who are in charge, they have to have their voice given to them from the consent of the governed, the people they govern. So the language sets up this really transactional thing. It's not your right to rule. You have to earn it. Then it goes on to say that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, does not protect those rights, it's the right of the governed to change the government or get rid of it altogether. Prudence or wisdom, indeed, will show that they shouldn't do this for light and transient, so things that change quickly. They shouldn't do this for light reason, but instead have to have good reasons to abolish these things. And that's where this section goes. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, theft, continues to reduce a people, it's their right, it is their duty to throw off that government. And finally, he ends it by saying, the history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all to have this absolute tyranny over the states. And then he will list them all, which I don't do here. So it's a transitive property from geometry. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. If people are deserving of a just government, and they can throw off a government that is not just, and then England is not just, then the people of America are deserving to throw it off. We use that language to try to come to our own understandings about what this document means. I'm hopeful that by listening to the video, you're gaining that same understanding and can reveal it to me in the form of your STEM for today. No need to do the Nearpod. And then we went into the Schuyler Sisters, this, which I cannot play, but you should watch. If you go to the slides, it's there, and just Google Schuyler Sisters. It's this wonderful video that shows, well, it's a play, it's a musical, but it's one of the few recordings that is available on YouTube of the musical without rights. So I don't know how long it'll be up there, and I certainly can't record it here. But it's this wonderful scene of New York City around, let's just imagine, the summer of 1776. So the Declaration has just been published. It's just been signed on August 2nd. And these women are representative of the kinds of American colonists who read it and are so energized and so excited about what is to come. So I'm going to use that to segue into your assessment. This is your assessment, and you're going to pick a song to study. For example, you could pick Schuyler Sisters. Once you pick your song, you are going to write an analysis of it, and you're especially going to look at the moments where it references real history. So we'll look at that together, and then once you've made your choice, you'll click on this link to add your choice to the document. So we'll go into the document now together. It's due Monday, November 2nd by 9 a.m. Here are your 6 choices. I've given you a little tiny piece about each one so you can make a decision. They're all created equal. They're all fantastic. But you can look and see if there's one that catches your interest more than the others. And then here's the link where you're going to add your choice. So let's pretend that we're picking Schuyler Sisters, which is what I was just showing you. And I'll go through this in more detail in tomorrow's video, like I said. But it's going to force you to make a copy. And once you've done so, this is your document. You'll share it with me, and that will be how you reveal your understanding of where the history meets the literature. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. Again, I'm going to do this in a lot more detail tomorrow, but let's pretend today is kind of the first part of your brainstorming. So here in this scene, Angelica says, "Listen to my declaration. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And when I meet Thomas Jefferson, I'm going to include women in the sequel, or I'll compel him to include women in the sequel." So here is a great moment to note for your initial brainstorming. Declaration of Independence. This is a direct quote, and it's pulled into this song. We just did that to show students the kinds of intellectual work we're going to be engaging in. And again, you'll have more tomorrow. Here's your STEM for today. The Continental Congress defied the British. This was a huge act of defiance, and they had a lot of reasons to be scared, but also a lot of reasons to feel enlivened. So add that to your big Google Doc. Show me what you thought of it in terms of the Declaration of Independence, or any other notes you want to make about that declaration informally, where the colonies said, "We are our own people now." And that is Wednesday.